My Own Garms.
What's happening, my mates? I'm Thomas Griffin and this is My Own Garms. And on this week's episode, I'm chatting to the very legendary Danny Fahey. Danny's the founder of Manchester-based creative agency £30 Gentlemen, who do all kinds of ace things with ace brands. You'll hear plenty more about it in the episode. He's got a deep passion for the music and culture that he's immersed in and has a proper understanding of what an authentic voice is. I'm buzzing to talk to him about his unorthodox journey into the world of garms and hear about the forces that shaped him and his wardrobe. If you like what you see and hear on My Own Garms and you want to make a podcast yourself, then hit me up on Insta at grifter_TE. That is my day job. Brands, individuals, B2B podcasts, all that type of stuff, get at me, especially if you're loaded. I've got another series of My Own Garms to fund. Right, let's get into this ep. This is My Own Garms with Danny Fahey. Danny, what's good, man? How you doing?
I'm all good, man. Thank you.
Thanks for braving the Manchester weather today. And
yeah, it's nasty out there, isn't it?
Fucking grim. But tell us about that sunlight that we just saw.
It's very, I'm pretty sure it's the Northern Lights. I saw it on the news before. The Northern Lights was popping up somewhere in England. So yeah, maybe. But then we looked to the right and there's a rainbow and I was like...
Double rainbow behind. And then this like weird golden glow that went from yellow to blue up the sky. It's nuts, man.
Only in Manchester.
I think the world's going to end, maybe.
No. Only in Manchester.
We'll look in the rainbow's direction. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good week. So, I mean, it's only Monday. You said it was a slow day today. How's the weekend for you?
It was pretty chill. I think I hung out, went to dinner with my missus. I don't think I did that much over the weekend. I'm pretty balanced, I start at 10, I finish at 6, or maybe pick at some emails a little bit into the night, but I'm not like an 18-hour day millionaire mindset crazed guy. I'm not doing hot yoga at 5 a.m. and all this stuff.
Healthy relationship, mate. I need to employ some of that. I'm up at all hours correcting audio edits and writing scripts, man. I mentioned in the intro that you've got a musician past, so I'm going to give you some bars of yours. And I want you to tell me what they mean to you today. So forgive my delivery. You might see me in a VC jeans and the black 110s at the back looking all low-key with a baseball cap, like I just don't want to be seen, that's me. So these bars, man, where are they from?
This is so mad. We had a short discussion before we started rolling and I'm a lot more comfortable with it now than I used to. But as well as having the position that I have in my own business and doing the work that I do, at the level that I do it, I have had a recording career. And, you kind of go back, and I mean, we're going back 20 years.
25, I think, yeah.
Right, maybe a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if you go back 20 years now in the rap industry in the UK was not like it is now.
Yeah.
I think at the time there was maybe me and a tiny handful of other people that had major record label deals. So I was signed to Virgin Records.
You're certainly amongst the very first wave of people that were getting noticed by the big labels.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say first wave. I think first wave of rap in the UK that had commercial success. You're talking about people like the Cookie Crew and the London Posse, Caveman. Yeah, so Ronnie P was in the London Posse with Bionic and CFO and, so it's I would say I was maybe kind of second wave.
Okay.
Kind of 90s UK rap. And then by the time I got my deal, it was the year 2000. So yeah, we're going back quite a while. But it was very different. There wasn't as much money involved in it as there is now. There wasn't as much public demand for it as there is now. But there was only a tiny handful of us that had the opportunity to sign big deals and have some of these life-changing experiences, Yeah. So those lyrics are, I think, very representative of that time for me as a young person. They're we were rapping about what we were doing day to day.
Yeah.
So that also meant what were we wearing, what were we eating, what were we drinking, where were we going, what were we driving. All of those things were kind of up for being told as part of the story,
Yeah. And the reason I picked these out is obviously because of the relationship to clothes specifically. And he mentions Evisu jeans in here. Was that a big brand for you as a youth?
It was.
Yeah.
It was at that time. At that time, Evisu was a really big kind of brand. So you're talking in the time when UK rap and UK garage were kind of bubbling at the same time. So the sorts of fashion that people were into. And England's a different place as well. So I think the black experience in the UK is so influenced by Jamaica and by dancehall culture. A lot of the silhouettes that we were wearing were very, very influenced by what was going on in dancehall.
Was the Visu popular in the Caribbean, like at the same time?
I
know it's all kind of it all feeds back into each other, but
yeah, it's all circular. So I would say that, as much as I'm saying dancehall culture is the influence, I would say that Evisu was probably seeded in the rap community by jungle.
Okay.
Or by UK garage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's this area where MC culture is just meshing in between each other in the UK. Do you know what I mean? But I think that, dancehall is probably, all of those subgenres, dancehall's the big uncle. Do you know what I mean?
The umbrella.
Of MC culture, yeah.
Which ones did you have? Which Evisus? Did you have the subtle, just back pocket, or did you have the multiple different colour Evisus?
Nah, just back pocket.
Okay, keeping it
classic.
Just
back pocket. I remember there was a mad pair of jeans with the big Visu sign on the back.
Big red sweep across the
But it looked like a
arse.
McDonald's sign.
Yeah.
it looked like a McDonald's logo. I was like, we cannot wear that. I can't touch that one.
But a bit of a resurgence these days. I've seen kids wearing a Visu around and about again after a kind of maybe 20-year hiatus, You see the cool kids in Manchester rocking vintage Visu, and it's good to see, man.
And I think it's that, it's that vintage, the idea that, you can... When I was young, we wanted to buy everything new. We wanted to buy everything new. We believed that was the only way that it held the same kudos and esteem. I think young people now are much more like sustainability focused. And then there's also the other thing of some of the stuff that they're buying vintage, you just can't get no more.
It's the rarity element, isn't it? It's the bigger flex than getting it new. If you've got the cultural know-how of where to get these rare, super rare bits from. Anyone who's got the dough can go and buy something off the shelf, but you've got to have something else if you want to source this specific gene. It's fascinating, man.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between fashion and style, though, right?
Okay.
It's like, say, even if you look back into like rap culture now, and you look at kind of drip culture, you see some of these young people are wearing head to toe designer gear, but none of it matches. It looks like they've gone in their wardrobe and put everything they own on all at once.
Okay.
And there's zero subtlety and there's no style there. It's fashion. It's in fashion. It's hot. It's expensive. You kind of probably have to be somebody to be able to pull that off. But it's that style element that's missing. And sometimes style is subtle,
Yeah, man. So 110s also get a mention in there. Like, was that always the trainer of choice for you?
It was. I think the 110 is like, I think it's the iconic UK street style sneaker. Like, I don't think there's anything above it, And I think that's because it transcends like all different cultures, all different types of people. Like white people, nitties,
Scousers.
Black people, Scousers, whoever. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
110s just transcend all of that. But Scousers have a mad fetish for it, though.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I lived in Liverpool for quite a long time, and that's kind of where I first heard them called 110s. I was like 90s when I was little, but then when I moved to Liverpool, it's a uniform there. They style it in a really subtly Scouse way, but it's beautiful to see, man. But it's an enduring shape, isn't it? Kian, who's helping out today, he's got a collective called All Terrain 95, and he's basically 20 years younger than me, and his whole kind of brand's persona is built around that shape 20 years down the line from when you were wearing it when you were 20 years old, man. And it's amazing to see. It
is amazing, but also, like, I won't wear them. So, like, a lot of the silhouettes that are in now are the same silhouettes I was wearing when I was an 18-year-old, and a 20, 21-year-old.
And you don't want to revisit it?
I'm very interested in going, what's next?
Okay.
So for me to go, okay, some of them are timeless silhouettes, especially when you're talking about tennis shoes, right?
Yeah.
Tennis shoes are timeless. You can dress up, you can dress down, you can wear them with a suit, you can wear them with a tracksuit, you can do whatever. But there's something about me as a 45-year-old focusing on the same silhouettes that I was focused on when I was a teenager. There's nothing wrong with it. But for me, I'm interested in what's next. So I'm interested in finding those new silhouettes and a new sense of mature fashion for me, myself.
Forwards, never backwards.
Yeah.
So I know with £30 Gentleman, which for those people who don't know is your current kind of creative professional outlet, you've worked with some amazing brands. And I know that storytelling is a big kind of passion of yours and something that kind of unites it all. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of storytelling and how you help brands do that through £30 Gentleman?
Yeah, so £30 Gentleman, and you also hear us just say TPG.
Yeah. Man. I'm so into the three. It's so hip hop to have a three, DPG or Disturbing the Peace, Dog Pound Gang. Like TPG just sounds so sick, man. It's a great collection of letters.
Yeah, and there is like a whole backstory for like £30 Gentleman and why the business is called £30 Gentleman is because it never started out designed to be an agency. Right now, TPG is a full service agency. We create content, we create story, we create campaigns, we manage events, we do all sorts of different things in the marketing category, in the ad category, campaign category, event category for all different types of brands as well, but mainly focused on menswear, technical wear. Fashion needs to catch up.
Yeah.
Right. Fashion is still like so gendered. So we do menswear. It's what we do and it's what we've been doing. But TPG started out originally just as a music program that was developed for young people to kind of keep them out of bad lifestyle choices. And this is going back, it's 9 years of the business this year. The first 3 years was kind of strictly that. The first 3 years was working with young people, getting them ready for the creative industry, kind of a bit below the performance line. So, you might meet a lot of young people that want to be rappers, singers, DJs, producers. You don't meet so many who want to be managers, agents, stage managers, directors.
Where you've got the real control, where the real kind of decisions get made.
Also that as well, where real decisions are being made, but also the idea that like, when it comes to participation, we might meet lots of young people who can do all of those things, right? Or participation generally in the UK, in cities in the UK, inner cities. If you're a young person, you want something to do, you'll be offered music, sport, drama. After that, these days, maybe like coding and stuff like that. But then if you don't want to do any of those things, you're probably at a loose end. But what if you're the one who can keep really good time? You're the one who, maybe you're the only one in the crew that's got a driving license, or you're the only one that could get everybody together. You'd make a fantastic tour manager.
Yeah.
You might make a brilliant project manager. Do you know what I'm saying? But the opportunity to develop and to be engaged might miss you because you're not an extroverted person or because you don't want to be a performer or an athlete of any kind. So we were really focused on those things. But what happened is we kind of generated quite a big following and quite a big group of young people that we could activate at kind of any time. So we kind of slowly became an agency because brands were starting to notice what we were doing. And also other agencies were noticing what we were doing. And a really good friend of mine, basically she approached me one day. She was working for an ad company. Her name's Josie. She approached me one day and was like, have you ever thought about doing this with your creative business? And our first brand client was the BBC FA Cup. Mad. And we picked it up, but then quite soon afterwards picked up Nike and a few other things because we were able to activate, create really amazing and honest, deep,
authentic, man,
insights and research and, informing campaigns in a really just an authentic way.
Yeah.
To provide the kind of insight that somebody who sat in some tower building in London trying to write a creative campaign for a brand that's maybe targeting a particular demographic of people, they're just not able to connect with it in the same way. So that's how we ended up doing that. And yeah, if it wasn't for Josie, this business probably wouldn't have ended up going in that marketing direction.
And that's like the main part of it now, more so than the artist development, or is it just the kind of holistic 360?
TPG has 3 strands.
Okay.
So the first strand is all about creation, it's music, it's culture first. So that means that we manage talent at a professional level, as well as develop talent at an emergent level. So we manage Gaika, he's a multidisciplinary artist from London.
Gaika, man, sick guy.
We manage Chunky,
Yeah.
obviously
Manc
local legend
Yeah.
in Manchester.
He was always on the mic at the raves that I went to, and I was coming over to Manchester to the
Yeah,
dances and stuff.
but also Chunky's like, he's also a multidisciplinary artist. He's an actor, he's a model, he's a musician, he's a music producer. He writes all of his music, he plays all of it, he produces all of it. So he requires a bit more effort and a bit more steam in the engine room to support an artist like him, because he's just there's so much going on. And Dref, who is a visual artist, so he creates like fine art, but he also creates murals like at building height. Do you know what I mean? On the creative side, there's some of the professionals that we support, but then there's also lots of talent that we've kind of supported along the way in Manchester. People like the Mason Collective and Just Banco and various other people that have kind of passed through the office. We've given them quite a lot of support in their kind of earlier mid-level careers. So that's the first part, and that's the part that is obviously the most valuable, is our connection to culture. The middle part is the part that keeps the lights on, which is connecting brands and companies to those audiences in really meaningful ways.
Yeah.
And what I'm really interested in is, kind of holding power to account. So if there is a brand that approaches us and they say, hey, we want to sell so much of X product to this particular community, I need to make sure that that's all for the right reasons.
Okay.
And I need to make sure that, even some of whatever's going on in the back room is okay. What's their slavery record like? What's their green record like? Do they have any connections to transatlantic slavery? What is the foundations of what their thing is built on before we even decide that we really should work with them or not? Do you know what I'm saying?
What's the reaction been like when you've put some of these questions that brands aren't used to answering?
Some of them go away and we never hear from them again. Like some of them will just completely stop communicating the minute it gets a bit techie like that. But I'm very clear in that they can't do anything without us. And when I say us, I mean like a collective, like me, you, people that are involved on anything media, street level, social media related events. They can't do nothing without us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So we definitely should feel like we can hold any power to account in these big brands that come to us wanting to talk to our communities or to communicate with people through us.
Yeah.
We definitely should feel like we can hold them to account and ask them any kind of questions, regardless of the check, which sometimes is a bit difficult to navigate because there's lights to keep on. Do you know what I mean? But no, I definitely sleep well at night knowing that any of these large companies that we've worked with, we've always had these discussions with them. And, if we've ever felt uncomfortable about any of it, then we can walk away from it.
It's important for you to be able to sleep well at night.
Yeah, 100%.
That kind of stuff, man.
The third part is all about the young people, so providing some of those young people with the opportunity to develop, to get it wrong, to proper fuck it up. You know what I mean? And that's kind of changed over the years. So over the years, we kind of provided programs and, experiences and internships and all of these kind of things, where now I'm much more interested in going, okay, if you don't know really what you want to do, we've got friends and partners that we can put you in touch with. So we're really good friends with the Contact Theatre in Manchester, Reform Radio, one of our tight partners. So if you're kind of not sure what you want to do, we'll plug you into those people. If you are gifted, talented, you know what you want to do, you're not scared of nothing, and you just turn up with your portfolio, you go, yo, I'm sick.
Yeah.
We'll probably find room to give you a job somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And sometimes that's in the office, like if it's like that, sometimes in the office, sometimes it will be on a project. If the project is sizable enough, we'll go, do you know what? There's a great videographer over there. I've seen their portfolio, it's sick. Let's give them a shot. Then they can start their career at the top.
Yeah,
they can jump on LinkedIn or stick some real work in their portfolio. That means that when they do go other places. They're kind of starting, maybe not at the top, but they're definitely not starting at the bottom. Do you know what I mean? But cash is king. I think a lot of these opportunities for people to like try stuff and experience things, it's like a cul-de-sac experience. So they come in, they operate in this kind of safe space, they do some creative stuff. Maybe they get paid, maybe they don't, but they generally leave at the same entry point. Well, I'm interested in going, right, this space, if I make it really safe for you, I'm doing you a disservice because the industry is not safe.
Yeah, man.
So like, let's stretch you as far as we can stretch you without exploiting you and actually show you there's another way up and out of this experience. But you have to be quite resilient to get to that space.
Can't be many people doing it like that, man. Big up yourself.
Thank you.
We were chatting about the first things that we ever bought at Affleck's Palace in Manchester. And you gave me a proper memory jolt when you mentioned the brand Etienne Ezeki. Did you say Ezeki?
Well, I'm a southerner, so I say Etienne Ezeki.
Okay, let's go for Etienne Ezeki.
You know,
that's I'm from an era where you didn't see it on telly, you just read it in a magazine, so you just made up your own pronunciation, I think. But you mentioned that to me, which I probably hadn't thought about for 20 years. And I remember seeing that in there, and I think I remember getting myself an Etienne Ezeki navy blue top with kind of like torn out, right, just looks so
just raggedy,
nuts, man. Raggedy, rough edges and stuff. I'd never seen anything like it. And I got into the jeans and stuff with the little red logo on the back. And it was a really like formative fashion era for me. Was that an era that you dug into yourself? What are your like memories of that particular part of your fashion history?
Do you know what? Like when we were talking on Instagram about that, you know, we spoke about that. Up until then, I'd never seen or heard of Etienne Ezeki before.
Okay.
So I like, to my mind, it was a regional thing.
Okay.
Because we weren't wearing it in London.
Right.
You know, at that time in London, we were wearing like Academics and Sean John and Rockaware and stuff like that.
American hip-hop wear.
American hip-hop wear, but then also some like British streetwear that was informed by that. So brands like Dark and Cold. Dark and Cold was a big one. But when I seen Etienne Ezeki, I didn't understand what it was the first time I seen it. Because like you say, it was a really original fashion. It was all torn up. It was the logo was cut out of denim and it was all frayed and stuff. And it reminded me a bit of Evisu. So I thought, I didn't really understand it. I was like, is this like a bootleg Evisu? Like, what is it? I didn't really get it. But I actually thought it was quite cool. The thing that was interesting is I only really saw gangbangers wearing it.
Okay.
So when I was going out at night, when I first landed in Manchester, I was going out, and we're going way back. We're going back to like maybe 2004, 5.
Yeah.
You know, I was going out in brands that I could not get into clubs in Manchester. So I was wearing like, you know, Prada Sport and Evisu, Ralph Lauren, and you would get to a nightclub door. And even me being a doorman, I was a doorman at that time as well. And you would get, and they'd say, can't wear none of that in here, which was mad. But then you'd see like all the local like gangbangers inside, but they was all wearing Etienne Ezeki, which was just, it was quite mad. But I remember buying a jumper similar to the one you described from Affleck's, Etienne Ezeki, and Criminal Damage as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was very Manchester as well. I remember anywhere I wore that, people always asked me about it as well, because it just wasn't anywhere else.
Do you think it was because of what it was actually called? That was a bit shocking at the time, or was it the design that you think caught people's eye?
I think it was both, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was both.
It's very like, it seems very graffiti-ish, the name, to me. So yeah, it's going to catch the eye, innit?
Rep your ends.
Rep your ends. So you're from South London. Whereabouts specifically?
Tulse Hill.
Okay. Tell me what clothes you saw people wearing around your area when you were young, and what influence that had on you.
Do you know what? It's just a very different time. So, you know, when people talk about the 90s and the early 2000s, they do it through a very romantic lens. You know, especially if they're talking about like garage culture and Moschino and Iceberg and stuff like that. In your head, you know, you have this idea that everybody was head to toe dripping in designer gear.
Yeah.
You know, 3-piece Moschino suits and the Reebok Classics. And it wasn't that. If you were lucky, maybe you had one designer garm.
Yeah.
If you were lucky. So that meant that maybe you had a jacket, but everything else was kind of standard, and people dressed up to go out. Where now I think people just wear what they want because it's all kind of high street and it's all expensive and it's all kind of Selfridges or flannels, and it's just nobody really dresses up. It's all streetwear is acceptable. But you go back to that time, if people were getting dressed up to go out, because you would have had to wear trousers and shoes to get into a nightclub. So maybe you had a Stone Island overshirt, but maybe that was your only designer garm, and underneath that you were wearing a shirt that it might have been your shirt that you wore to work.
Yeah.
Or the trousers that you wore they would have looked like school trousers.
Yeah.
And the shoes that you were wearing, unless you were really a guy that either had a bit of money or you knew what you was getting, they also would have just looked like some Wallabies or kind of Rockport looking shoes or whatever to get in. So I don't think it was a particularly stylish era, unless you're being super romantic and you're looking at it through either an editorial lens and you're looking through old copies of ID and going, oh my God, everything looks so good in the 90s and in the 2000s. But it definitely didn't. The style was bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But going back to what informed what I was wearing at the time, by the time I was kind of in my, adolescence, young teens, early 20s, was very inspired by gangster style. And when I say that, I mean dressing up sense of gangster style. So that's tailoring.
Yeah.
Trench coats, aquascutum coats, Burberry Macs, things like that. So, and leather as well, where leather's not so popular now. When I say leather, I mean like unbranded leather jackets and blazers, where there might have been a leather shop on the high street where you could go in and even say to the guy in the shop, I want that jacket, but I want it in that colour. And he would say, come back in 2 weeks, I've got you covered.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I was buying a lot of like custom leather at that time in my like early 20s, like shearling coats that was to the ground.
Beautiful.
And doing crazy shit as well. Like I remember I had a flight jacket, leather flight jackets. I had a rabbit fur. Don't throw eggs at me. Is a rabbit fur collar, black leather. So it was kind of like your kind of MA2 silhouette. Okay. Yeah. Elasticated waist sleeves. But then as winter was coming, it's like, maybe I should just get a long one. And I remember going to the shop and I said to the guy, can you like make me one of these but long? He said, well, we kind of can't. For whatever reason, he couldn't. I said, well, can you just
Rabbits don't grow that big.
I said, can you just put two together? And he said, yeah, no problem. Give me 2 weeks. So I came back and I had this MA2 bomber that was like full length. It was elasticated on the bottom, so it was down way past my knees, elasticated at the bottom, like double leather.
Sounds like a really avant-garde.
Yeah, I might still have it somewhere. Yeah, it will be shrink wrapped somewhere. But yeah, custom leather was one of those things because it's what the guys that we looked up to on the street were wearing, and they might have just been wearing this main jacket with denim, or with some shoes, Gucci loafers, still baseball caps as well, still wearing baseball caps. Gap, the Gap cap, the classic plain basic Gap cap was how you'd finish off your look. So that was definitely a look for us for dressing up.
How were you wearing your caps back then? Because there's obviously the big American style flat brimmed new era. Are we talking the Gap ones with a super tight curved brim? Was that your style?
I went through both phases.
Okay.
I think the early 2000s it was tight. So even like Nike TN and Nike tennis, you'd get like the dry fit cap. Or the classic TN cap, which is like a khaki one, and that was very tight.
Yeah.
And you would wear an unbranded one, and Gap was the unbranded one to go out in.
Yeah.
So if I was going to wear a baseball cap at night, go to the club, it was always a plain Gap, tight fitted 3-panel cap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how, we've touched on this a little bit, but how kind of global hip hop culture interacted with these more British-based styles, because you've talked about the plain leather jackets, but when I think back to the kind of UK hip-hop era and the kind of the birth of garage, it was Averex jackets and it was the more kind of flamboyant, obviously American ones. But When was the first time that you saw these American styles being worn by your peers, and how were you kind of appropriating them and mixing them together with British, the more kind of tailoring stuff that you've described?
I think you see that mix of like tailoring and street, it's kind of always been a thing. So like even like today, like I've got on like a Kappa training top, but standard tan chinos. So mixing the tailoring and the streetwear is something I've always been quite comfortable with. I think that's something that's indicative of the era that I'm from.
Yeah.
In a sense of when my adolescence would have been. When did people start wearing that American influenced stuff? I think forever.
Yeah.
Really. I think forever, and especially in hip hop. But like I say, I think that the dancehall influence through everything made some just, really interesting things happen, like Stone Island being super popular on the street. But really, I only really started seeing it during the jungle era, and the garage era. Same with Versace. I never really saw silk Versace shirts until like the UK garage era, where guys from the street would be wearing it.
Yeah. Now we find ourselves where we're at today in Manchester. As you mentioned, you're working with a lot of talented local artists, connecting them to these global brands. When did you first move up to Manchester, and how, from a kind of clothing perspective, what were the things that you noticed happening up here that weren't happening in South London?
I moved to Manchester in 2003.
Okay.
But I'd been coming here before then through music, touring, and through the security trade and all those things. And one thing I noticed when I got here was that I stood out because everything I was wearing was too loud.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when I really felt conscious that what I was wearing was loud. And what I realized was this kind of function in fashion in Manchester was so important that, if you didn't have a proper jacket, a Berghaus jacket, or if you couldn't afford one, a trespass jacket, like you was just cold and wet. Do you know what I'm saying? So having a proper jacket, North Face, Berghaus, these kind of brands was really important. And then I remember going into, I think it was Foot Asylum, and they had a whole wall. The entire section was black trainers. Just every different trainer they had in the store, but they had all of them in one section, just black, top to bottom, triple black trainers. And I was like, yeah, I'm in Manchester.
Okay,
like,
so it's the subtlety, the low-key flex rather than the high-key kind of...
But it was they were... No, I'm talking like there was a mannequin in the shop that was dressed like Mandem. So there was a mannequin in the shop that had a cap on, a face mask, black tracksuit, the hood was up, black TNs on. Like, that's how the mannequin in the shop was dressed. So I was like, nah, like this shop knows that it's in Manchester. Like, it knows who it's selling garms to. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean, man.
Yeah. I just find that it just kind of blew my mind that, you would always go for white trainers. You'd always go for, something that had a bit of colour and a bit different. But the idea that, if you was wearing anything but black, it kind of maybe wasn't so cool on a street level, was just new to me. Do you get me? It was just new. So I immediately knew that my fashion stuck out. I remember I went out one day, I was wearing a Pringle jumper.
Yeah.
And it was a light blue body with navy blue sleeves. But I just remember people commenting on how loud it was and that it just would have looked better if it was black.
Mad.
Do you know what I mean?
It's nuts that there's that divide. And I've kind of heard people refer to that, but never as, as black and white, like literally, as you've just painted it out to be there. But every time I wear white trainers to Manchester, if I walk around and I'm not looking at my feet, I inevitably end up with like a fucking jet of oily brown slime blasted up from a loose paving slab up my white trainers, and I have to go home and get my toothbrush
Exactly,
out.
and this is what I mean when I say function.
Yeah.
When function and fashion have to go hand in hand, and I think that this territory, being the way that it is, so much weather-wise and stuff like that, has definitely decided for people what they're going to wear.
Yeah.
And when and how. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, fascinating story, geographical story. Now, we touched on before people maybe not being able to afford multiple pieces of designer gear to get into clubs in the 90s. So I don't know whether this relates to that at all, but I know something that interests you a bit is counterfeit gear and the kind of culture and background of that. People around here say snide. Scousers say jar.
Yeah, we say snide as well in the south.
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say. So, what did you call it when you were a youngster? Was it always snide? Is that what you said? If someone was wearing
snide, fake, hookies, whatever.
Okay,
you know.
All right.
Yeah.
And I know the specific roads in Manchester that you can go up and down, and it's like a Milanese high street of brands, but everything's jarg, man. Everything's fake, and I find it fascinating, man, and beautiful that these kind of like cultures run counter to the high end for people that can't afford them. Mm-hmm. So what's your kind of experience with that and why the interest in it?
My thing with fake garms is more about the creativity that goes into it than the fact that it's fake and you can look like you're wearing some proper gear. Yeah. And I mean, there's loads of reasons actually, but that's where I've kind of ended up with it. But my first love of fake gear came from just being able to sell a bit of it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So like when I was very young, was able to get some fake Armani jeans, some fake V2s, Versace jeans, blue jeans, go shop to shop, selling them in the barbershops, right?
Okay.
So that was my first experience of having any fake gear, because if I wasn't wearing it, nobody could say to me, where you get those from? And I could say, oh yeah, I can get you some.
Yeah.
Right? So selling it when I was young, that was my entry point, right? But what I find interesting is, you know, there's one of my favorite places on earth, is the flea market in Paris. But, you know, you go all the way to the end of the metro line, you get off, you got like another maybe half a mile walk, and it's the biggest flea market I've ever seen, like, in my life. And you start off at the front and it's like people selling duvet sets, and you get a little bit further in, there's people selling like mixtapes and like rappers trying to push CDs on you. And then you get a bit further in and it's like the maddest fake heaven of everything. Rolex watches, Nikes, Balenciagas, football replica, like, but I'm talking oceans of it, like it's the size of the Arndale Centre, bigger. Do you know what I'm saying? But what you find is you'll find some mad collaborations that you think that could actually be a good one.
Yeah.
You know, like real, like crazy fake collaborations, you know. You might have like Fendi and Louis Vuitton together, like, and it's a mad collab. But the design is actually cold.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? You might see like a pair of like SB Dunks and they're like covered in like a LV pattern, and you think, I know these are fake, but they look so cold. I think I just need to have them.
Yeah, man.
Do you know what I mean? So that creative part of it is, I find really, really interesting, you know.
And do you think some of these big fashion houses might have their eyes on this kind
100%.
of stuff? Because you do, you know, we've seen these
100%.
collaborations happen, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%. All of these big companies are collecting and harvesting fake product of their own. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's market research for them on a certain level.
It's absolute research. Like, they're harvesting it because they're going, oh, somebody wants this so much that they've decided to make their own one.
Yeah.
Should we consider this? Should we talk about this? Do we bring this up in a meeting? Like, what do we do here? Because we still need to compete with ourselves if we're being faked, right? We still need to compete. So absolutely, they're collecting and harvesting all the fakes and taking it as serious research. That's without doubt.
How good would a art exhibition be with like the best of the fakes? You know, I'd go to a museum and see these like, you know, works of art that people have created.
Yeah, 100% I would go.
Make it happen, man. You do it.
I tell you what was interesting. A few years ago, we had Sports Banger came as a guest at one of our seminars that we run for young people. And he came, gave us all of his time for free. He's that sort of person, do you know what I mean? Gave us all of his time and spoke really honestly about his own journey of like bootlegging, fake gear, but creating the Sports Banger brand, what that means. He's got to deal with Slazenger, what that means. And, you know, I said to him, like, do you know what, bro? Like, just let me know what you need. I'll meet you tomorrow. Cause we put him up in like an amazing hotel. So we put him up in the Dakota. And And he had had a nice time, cushy time. I said, tell us what you want to do tomorrow. He said, I need to go Bury New Road. He said, I need to go. I've heard about it.
Pilgrimage.
I need to go. Yeah, it was like a pilgrimage for him, yeah. And he said, get me a car. So we got him a car. We got him like a Mercedes for the day and a driver. And we went to Bury New Road with him, chauffeur driven in this Mercedes. And he was like a kid in a sweet shop, yeah. Going from like, but now it's like all the shutters are down. So it's kind of like a mad risk. Like you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know if there's somebody there waiting to just take your money off you or whatever. But it was like a really surreal experience to be with someone that was so wanted to be in that environment. It was like a coming home situation for him, you know what I mean? And he bought everything. He bought everything like Chanel bath mats and all of this kind of stuff. But then I see some of it was in his fashion show. I seen some of the puffer coats that he made was made out of the fake Chanel that he bought, but they were like maybe like handbags or something. I can't remember. But he left with bags and bags and bags and bags of like
Inspo.
Bulk shit that he bought from Bury New Road, from all of these mad side street factories and shit.
Man. But yeah, get him on. He's got a book out, hasn't he, recently?
He's got a book out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to get that and
he's an amazing person.
Get him on here.
He's an amazing person. He's mad.
Yeah.
He's mad.
All the best ones are.
Do you know what I mean? He's mad, but nah, I think he's one of those people that when we're talking about authenticity, like he really means it when it comes to the work that he does with people and for people.
Authentically inauthentic brands. Club where in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, there was very strict door policies. And I know that you worked the doors for a little while as part of it, and also I presume you were going out as a punter. What kind of stuff were people wearing then, and what is it that you kind of miss about that era specifically? So
I was a nightclub doorman between the ages of 18 and 26. And we were wearing, the stuff that we were wearing to go to work in isn't like now. You know, like now you go to like a nightclub and your doorman is wearing like a high-vis jacket and combat trousers and stuff like that.
Bad boots.
Like we was wearing Hugo Boss suits to work and like Yves Saint Laurent overcoats and Prada shoes, Gucci loafers, Patrick Cox loafers. Like we were dressing up to go to work.
Yeah.
And if we wanted any semblance of control, we needed people to look up to us.
Yeah.
And that meant that we had to dress the part. And we were almost dressing for authority, but dressing in finery, if that makes sense.
Total sense, man.
Yeah. So it's definitely not like now where like nightclub doormen are dressed like they're collecting the dustbin. Like it's not like that now. So I think that's something that's a big change. And yeah, in terms of what people are wearing to go out, I suppose it depends on scenes as well, you know. I suppose it depends on scenes, but I just don't feel like people dress up.
Yeah.
I think people might still dress for an occasion. So like, I know that come Christmas time, you might see a lot of lads out and the cardigan is like a staple of like, how do I be smart but still be street?
Okay.
Maybe it's a jumper, maybe it's a cardigan. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think the idea of dressing up, you know, putting on a blazer, a suit, an overcoat, some actual shoes rather than sneakers, that's definitely missing. I don't know if I miss it, but it's missing.
So out of the two interviews that we've done today, Patrick Cox has been name-checked twice. And this is a brand that you don't see much about today, but it was like the loafer de rigueur of the time. If you were going out and you wanted smart shoes, that was the one you were going for. Did you have a collection?
Snakeskin.
Okay.
Snakeskin.
Not doing things by halves.
Yeah, snakeskin, Patrick Cox. And there's also another brand that I really like for shoes called Daniel Pallet.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Yeah, Daniel Pallet was Chelsea boots, but not like your kind of classic Chelsea boots. They were quite a little bit different.
Like stuff like
snakeskin, like zips instead of elastic.
Do you not think that the door policies that a lot of the clubs had were a little bit exclusionary? Like,
very.
In a bad way as well as good? Like
very. A lot of the, I mean, in Manchester, like, let's not make any bones about it. Like, those store policies were designed to keep gangbangers out, you know. And a lot of the time, that was what people were wearing: Prada Sport, Ralph Lauren. But also, only in Manchester you would see, like, I remember the clubs used to have like a whole list of things just stuck
To the wall.
to the wall.
Yeah.
Just a whole list of brands that they said, if you're wearing this, you can't come in.
That's so nuts, in it, that it can be brand specific.
Crazy. But you know, things like no man bags and stuff like this, but it's like really what they mean is no man them. That's what they mean. Like, do you know what I mean? And when I say that, you know, I definitely mean, I remember there was times where you could go to the Warehouse Project in Manchester or any kind of large event in Manchester, and there would be dozens of black boys stood outside that couldn't get in, you know, and the argument was always, oh, you can't get in with these brands. But there's a list of like 50 brands that you couldn't get in. Man? So it meant that people could be arbitrary about why they're not letting you in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that list decreased. Like, the ones you see more often these days are more like the football casuals brands, like Stone Island CP, basically. And they're the ones that you see none of this wearing it, or colours, you know, football colours on match day or whatever. Yeah. Because they don't like the clientele. But you can get into clubs, most clubs, and I mean, I've not been in clubs for a long time now. I'm 38, so it's kind of in my past. But I love that you can wear what you want to wear to a club. But I do also get it from the other side, where dressing up makes it more of an event and more of a kind of communal, community-minded bonding of people having a good time in a special way, you know. You know,
that my understanding of it is that if you make an effort in what you're wearing, you're grooming, you dress up, you feel better about where you are there and then. Yeah. And then you should go out and have a good time. You should probably not be rolling around, tearing your best shirt, having a fight because you've taken all that time to get ready and go out. You don't want to nose it up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But there's always, everyone always has one friend though that will just turn up in a tracksuit to like a night out and just mess it up for everybody. Like there's always one that will just turn up in an Air Max trackie. Yeah. But they didn't really want to come out anyway. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's just a will to rub up against authority in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. Which I rate as well. Yeah. I love that as well, you know?
Yeah, but them being authentically themselves. Yeah.
Top 3 selected.
I know you've worked with a lot of brands with TPG, and I know that authenticity is a big thing for you, like we touched on it earlier on. So I want you to give me 3 brands, maybe ones that you've worked with or other ones that you admire, that you think do things authentically, whatever that means to you.
I have to put CP Company up there as being like just a super authentic brand. And that's in terms of the product. You know, everything is original, it's proprietary.
In terms of the fabrics
and the technology, kind of nothing's borrowed. So that authenticity is there from day one. And then when you look at the list of people that they might work with talent-wise and collaboration-wise, that really, really shows through. Like the last campaign that they did in New York was with ASAP Nast. Now, that's because Nast is really like a streetwear connoisseur. Okay. And they could have gone with ASAP Rocky. They got the money to go with ASAP Rocky, but that just wouldn't have been genuine. It would have just been for the reach. Okay. You know, and they went, ASAP Nast, that's who we really want to work with. Mad. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They celebrated their 50th anniversary in England, in Darwin. In Darwin with a whole collection of archive stuff in this underground car park, and it was an experience that people who wear the gear in Darwin, anybody that's like casual terrace adjacent, they would never have had that experience if it was a different brand, because it would have been in London or Paris or Milan, or it would have been somewhere else. So I put them up there for all those reasons. I think the way that they connect with people that are really into the garms is just like, it's for real, I think.
Yeah, man. And it comes out in the wash, you know, people can smell the authenticity, even if they don't sense it overtly, you know, doing things like working with the people they actually want to work with, and doing things like reaching out to these parochial towns in the outer reaches of northeast Lancashire. It's like people can sense it, if not know about it.
Yeah, 100. I think Trapstar You know, I think that Trapstar is like, in my opinion, it's like the indigenous UK rap brand.
Okay.
I think it's synonymous with the sound, you know. And at one point I would have said it's very London, but I think it's bigger than that now.
You see it everywhere. I mean, I know very little about this brand, so explain a little bit about its backstory for me, for our audience and me. But
bro, I'll probably be able to not tell you much more than you already know.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? The person you need to talk to is Ping Pong. You need to get Ping Pong on the show. So Ping Pong's the head of retail, but he spent a long time living in Manchester. He was in Merkage.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in Merkage. So you get Ping Pong on the show, I'll hook you up.
Wicked. Nice one, man.
But no, I just think the way that it's grown and developed and just become just super prolific, you know, and in that kind of drop culture, the way that they've been running that drop culture, just pulling together the collection, letting people know it's going to be out, and boom, it goes, it flies. You know, and aligning with obviously Dave and Central C and people like this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think they get it. And also they're a super young brand as well. You know, like the guys that run the brand are, you know, probably not much older than 30 type of thing, you know.
And are they the demographic that they are selling to? It's not someone that's come along and tried to
That's right.
monetize to this person, and that I know that's super important to.
That's right. That's right. And this is the thing, you know. If it was the other way around, I don't think it would be as prolific as it is, because those young people that are buying it and running for the drops, like, it's kind of made for them by people who are like them. Do you know what I'm saying? And they yeah, exactly. And they get it. They get it. They really get it. You know. And I think the same goes for, like, you know, Dramacal, Cortez, Clint's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think they are the probably leaders in British streetwear. You know, they're like probably the big four to my mind.
Manchester on the map as well.
Yeah,
Like.
but then there's also other sick shit that's here in Manchester that kind of doesn't get the shout, or people forget is here, like Private White VC.
Okay.
Their factory is here.
Mad.
Private White don't make stuff in China or Bangladesh or Turkey or Portugal. The factory's in Manchester. You can go and take a tour of it. Like, and it's mad. They do everything. All the finishing, the welding, the pattern cutting, like everything. And it's a luxury tailoring brand. Like, it's amazing that it's here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
7L system, seven layer, again in Manchester. I think the flagship store's in Alderley Edge. But it's like outerwear that can actually test Stone Island and some of the other big boys. Like, it's up there, and it's a local Manchester brand as well. So, you know, I think they're the brand that I definitely would love to do some like big work with.
Okay.
Because I think they're on the cusp of actually really doing something.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
So I'm seeing it more and more
Yeah.
on people, and they seem to have a good reach out to the right people, the seed into the right places, I think.
Yeah, I think 7L, 7 layer, they're cold.
That's top three, man. Nice top three.
Yeah, maybe I cheated. Maybe there's more than 3 there, but yeah.
Top 3 or 4. We'll group some of them together.
Next hype.
So let's start off talking about the future from a personal perspective. Before, you mentioned that it was always forwards, never backwards. You know, you're always looking to the future. We talked about 110s being in 20 years ago and currently. What do you see creeping in the future of kind of footwear? What's next for is the Samba era over? Is it time for Stan Smiths to rear their head?
I don't think they'll ever go away. I think Stan Smiths will never die. Like I've had like other interviews in the past and gone, do you know what? I think they're like just the forever shoe. You can dress it up, you can wear it with trousers, you can wear it with shorts.
Yeah.
You know, I think Stan Smiths will never die.
Future proof.
Yeah. But also, like, I think like that kind of tennis shoe silhouette in general. So I say the Stan Smith, but it's not my favourite actual tennis shoe. I think my favourite actual tennis shoe is the EA7 tennis shoe.
Okay.
I got a love for EA7. Like,
right.
It's become one of my kind of go-to day-to-day runners tennis shoes. Like, I got a love for EA7, but it's the way that the insole is cut out. It's cut out really high.
Okay.
So it just means that it's just got a nice shape. You know,
the foot in a certain way.
Yeah, where like when you look down, like the the insole is cut so high that it just looks like just a beautiful shoe. Yeah,
I've never had a pair. I'll have to get myself.
Yeah,
where
like the Stan Smith, like the insole isn't cut that high. It gets a bit like loose, a bit baggy when you wear them. A bit like, yep. Stan Smith Sambas are having their renaissance anyway in high fashion. They're not going nowhere, and it's interesting because that's gone from like being the real dad shoes. You know, there's like dad sneakers, like. Dad sneakers have been back, like your New Balance and, some of those other Nike Golf trainers and stuff like that, where Stan Smiths and Gazelles have gone from being an ick to like the people that would say that they was an ick are the ones that are now wearing them to go fashion school in.
Yeah.
Like, it's very mad. And I kind of don't know how that happened either. I know there's been some like big collabs that have happened, but that's been an interesting one to see that all turn around.
Yeah, man. But what do you think is coming up then? I mean, Sambas. I mean, just the fact the numbers that you see about mean that the kids at fashion school are going to be going. There's few too many people wearing these.
Yeah, I think Clint's is just going to continue to thrive and grow. I think as a shoe company, it's exceptional. I think it's some of the apparel that Clint's are producing is like mind blowing. Like the leather jackets of like a really high quality, and they're kind of leaning deeply into that 90s era. So I'm definitely backing that Clint's will win.
Yeah, they get a lot of love on this podcast, Clint's.
Yeah.
I personally feel like I'm not cool enough to wear Clint's, so I'll have to go down and see if anything suits, man.
Well, that's the thing. It's not just footwear. Like there's loads of apparel as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think you'll find some apparel where you're like, I feel comfy in this.
Sick, man.
Yeah.
I know that you are infinitely fascinated by youth culture and how it kind of pushes things forward. But are there any kind of subsections of youth culture that you think are really kind of blazing a trail at the moment, really pushing things forward?
When I think about youth culture and I think about like what the future might look like, fashion-wise, and culture-wise as well, I think 100% the future's female.
Okay.
When you look at where real movement is happening socially, whether that's in gender equality, whether that's in race equality, you look at Black Lives Matter as an organisation, the leadership is female or people of the female sex, if they're non-binary, etc., all women of colour. If you look at anything that comes out of like queer scenes, especially in Manchester, it's all super forward, futuristic facing. You look at the Institute of Digital Fashion, it's Catty Tay and Leanne Elliott. And even if you look locally in Manchester, for a perfect example of it is there's a club host in Manchester. And I say a club host, he's not really a club, like a local nightclub host. He will host like events that have 5,000-10,000 people, but he's called CVP.
Okay.
Yeah, on Instagram, you'll find him as CVP the Great.
Right.
Style-wise, he's the best new style icon that I've got in Manchester, where I'm like, he's got his whole thing. And it's the African influence, because he's kind of big in the Amapiano scene and stuff like that. But his style, his sense of style, the African influence, all of those kind of things, I think he's like a really good example of like what the future might look like for menswear, men's style. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, man. I've noticed as well, particularly in digital fashion, like the most interesting people I've heard talk about are all female. Like, and that's a space that people often bemoan as being very, very male dominated. But the most interesting voices, there's a brand called Ouroboros, like, that sign of a snake eating its own tail, to young women doing mad things in the digital fashion world. And my experience and your experience, it must be that way.
Yeah.
Exciting times. Final question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care about clothes?
I'll go from 0 to 10.
In one day?
Yeah, like in one day or both at the same time.
So what does the 0 look like?
The 0 looks like I'm very comfy in what I wear and all of the clothing that I own. Like I don't look in the mirror. I'm one of those people.
Okay.
So like I don't look in the mirror. I just get dressed and I go, because I know what I've got. So I'm very sure about my sense of fashion.
Yeah.
So that's me kind of like not caring. But I suppose the the 10, the caring too much part, probably comes in like getting it in the wardrobe in the first place.
Yeah,
so,
man. I was going to say you can only be a 0 if you've done the 10 at another point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so knowing what I'm buying, where I'm buying it from, knowing what my sizes are in the brands that I like.
That's so mad to learn that in it. It's so different from brand to brand.
It's so different from brand to brand, but annoyingly so. When you're sort of my size, annoyingly so. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like a double X in most things.
Yeah.
But then there are some brands that like, annoyingly won't go to my size, or if it is my size, actually it's not. It's actually cut really too small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is nuts in menswear because I'm a skinny dude. Like I weigh 11 stone and I get an L in stuff. And there's people that weigh 20 stone that are normal people. Like, what are they meant to wear? Not everyone wants to go to Big on Style or whatever the kind of tall lad shops are because the gear's whack, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's awful.
Do you think brands are not creating bigger clothes because the material costs too much in a quadruple XL?
No, I can tell you for a fact that there are some brands that don't go large because they don't want particular people being seen in the garms.
Mad.
So there are still some brands that are going, we don't want fat people wearing it.
Nuts, man.
Because they think that will put off
Diminish their
young, good-looking people that want to wear their shit. Do you know what I mean? And that's still a fact, like in fashion.
Bring back the era of custom leathers, man.
Yeah,
Cut to the body of the client.
yeah. Which is it's also like a super old school thing. I don't think that thinking is there anymore. But I think I'm seeing a lot more people that are making their own stuff to go out in. Like I see that a lot, people that might make their own top skirts, especially out of vintage stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that a lot more, which is good. It's really, it's inspiring.
I rate that, man.
Yeah.
Nice one, man. Seems like a good place to end it. Hope for the future and that. Thanks a million for doing it, mate. It's been great to have a chat.
Thank you for having me. This has been sick.
Nice one, man.
Nice one.
Wow. What a fucking gem. Love that guy. Big up Danny Falz for coming by and for being so generous with his time and knowledge. Go and drop him a follow on Insta. He is at 30 Gentleman. I'll tag him in the blurb so you can just click through from there. Shout out Native Manchester for the hookups on the recording rooms. If you want to chill on massive orange chairs like us and have a lovely city centre space to cut your tea in, get onto them, nativeplaces.com. That is a wrap for now. We'll be back up in your feeds later in the week for some Fitbit breakdowns. Thanks a million for being here.
Feels amazing. Strangers, oh I care so much about strangers. Breaking, my mind is breaking. Strangers, oh I care so much about strangers.